On an ordinary morning, you might board a bus and sit beside another human species. Not an alien, not an intelligent ape, a human, but not Homo sapiens. Around 40,000 years ago, Earth was shared by at least two human species, us and the Neanderthals. Today, they exist only in museums and in our DNA. But imagine they had never gone extinct. What would the world look like? To answer that question, we first need to understand who Neanderthals really were. For many decades, scientists described them as primitive brutes, slow creatures, simple creatures, a species doomed to disappear. But modern discoveries have completely changed that picture. Neanderthals had brains comparable to ours, sometimes even larger. They used complex tools. They hunted in organized groups. They cared for injured members of their communities. And they likely had their own forms of culture. In 2010, researchers successfully sequenced much of the Neanderthal genome. The result was shocking. Many modern humans still carry Neanderthal DNA. That means the two species did not merely meet. They had children together. In a sense, Neanderthals are not entirely gone. A small part of them lives on in billions of people. But let's imagine their populations survived. Let's imagine they successfully endured climate change and competition from Homo sapiens. The modern world would be very different. The first change would be social. There would be two intelligent human species living on the same planet. That idea immediately raises a question. Would there be equality? History suggests the answer would not be simple. Humans have found reasons to divide themselves even when they look nearly identical. Differences in language, differences in culture, differences in religion. Now imagine real biological differences. The relationship between the two species would probably be complicated. Some societies would cooperate, others would discriminate, others might attempt to dominate. At the same time, cooperation could produce extraordinary results. Neanderthals were exceptionally adapted to cold environments. Their bodies were robust, their muscles were powerful, their physical endurance was impressive. Perhaps certain professions would be dominated by Neanderthals. Perhaps some sports would look completely different. Maybe Olympic records would be shared between two human species. But what about science? This is where things become truly fascinating. Every species develops different ways of perceiving the world. Small differences in brain structure can create entirely new perspectives. What discoveries might have emerged if two forms of human intelligence had collaborated for tens of thousands of years? Perhaps some problems would have been solved much faster. Perhaps others would have become even more complex. No one knows. There is another possibility. The world might have been less unified. Empires, nations, laws, all of them would need to manage relationships between two human species. Every political decision would become more complicated. Every conflict would gain a new dimension. Yet the mere existence of another intelligent human species would fundamentally change how we see ourselves. Today, Homo sapiens is the only surviving human species. We are used to thinking of ourselves as special, unique, different from every other animal. But if Neanderthals were still here, that belief would be much harder to maintain. We would be forced to accept that human intelligence is not a singular phenomenon, that there is more than one way to be human. Perhaps we would become more humble. Perhaps we would become wiser. Or perhaps we would repeat the same mistakes that have followed us throughout history. The strangest part is that this alternate world is not as impossible as it seems. Neanderthals survived for hundreds of thousands of years. They endured ice ages. They built tools. They raised children. They formed communities. They looked up at the same sky you see today. The difference between their survival and their extinction may have come down to seemingly small events. A different climate, a different migration, a few different evolutionary outcomes. That is all. So the next time you look in a mirror, remember something. You are not the inevitable result of evolution. You are the result of a history that could have unfolded in many different ways. In another world, you might have shared this planet with another human species. And the strangest thing of all is that species would not have been so different from you. It would simply have been another version of what it means to be human. Humanity was never guaranteed. Our story could have taken another path. Another species once stood beside us. They hunted, they loved, they raised families. They looked at the same stars. Then they disappeared. But their absence still shapes the world you live in. Because history is not the story of what had to happen. It is the story of what happened. And sometimes, the difference between those two things changes everything.